They found him alone, slumped over, no signs of injury, no cry for help, just silence and a morning that would never continue. Sadly, he's not the only one. Every year, thousands of older men suffer sudden episodes, strokes, heart palpitations, blood pressure collapses, and many are traced back to a moment they thought was private, harmless, even healthy. Masturbation. Yes, something most wouldn't admit, but quietly consider a safe outlet. But here's the shocking truth. That belief, especially after age 60, could be killing more slowly than we think. I'm Dr. James, a men's health physician with over 3 decades of experience, and I've sat across from countless patients who never imagined their morning habit could be part of the problem. The tragic part? It's not the act itself, but the way it's done. Habits picked up decades ago, ones that felt fine in youth, are now silently backfiring in the aging body. But there's hope. Today, I'll walk you through the 4 silent masturbation mistakes older men make in the morning, how they damage blood circulation, and most importantly, how to avoid them starting now. And the last one? It's the one even your doctor probably doesn't warn you about. Stay with me. Type 1 if you're with me, type 0 if not. Now let's begin with the first and perhaps most dangerously overlooked mistake. What happens when you hold your breath during climax? It sounds like such a small thing, a natural reflex, barely noticeable. But for men over 60, holding your breath during climax can quietly wreak havoc on your cardiovascular system, especially when it happens first thing in the morning. You see, I remember one of my patients, let's call him Richard, 68 years old, relatively healthy, still active, and proud that he hadn't let age steal his vitality. But over a few months, he started noticing strange symptoms. Sudden dizziness after waking, a flutter in his chest after climax, moments of near blackout when getting up too fast. He chalked it up to age or dehydration, but he was wrong. What was really happening? Every morning, right after waking, he'd go straight into stimulation, and each time, just as he climaxed, he'd instinctively hold his breath. This small moment is more dangerous than most people realize. When you hold your breath and bear down during orgasm, your body goes into what we call the Valsalva maneuver. It causes a sharp spike in intrathoracic pressure, momentarily stopping blood from returning to your heart. That sudden disruption leads to a temporary drop in cardiac output, followed by a surge of blood pressure when you release the breath. For a young man, the body may recover quickly, but for someone over 60, those fragile blood vessels, already narrowed with age, struggle to adapt. The result? Reduced oxygen to the brain, potential microtears in vessel walls, increased stroke risk, and long-term damage to circulation. Worse still, these effects are magnified in the morning when the body is dehydrated, cortisol is peaking, and blood pressure is naturally in flux. It's the perfect storm. A silent one. Richard wasn't doing anything extreme. He wasn't pushing his heart rate with exercise. He wasn't under emotional stress. He was simply repeating an old habit, one that had once been harmless but now posed a real threat to his health. After changing just this one habit, training himself to breathe fully and steadily through climax, his symptoms eased. His blood pressure stabilized. He even reported feeling more energized instead of drained afterward. This is the kind of mistake that no one warned you about. But the cost of ignoring it? Subtle damage, repeated daily, that compounds over time. It doesn't happen with one climax, but years of vascular strain, especially when you think you're just relieving tension, can quietly chip away at your circulatory health until one day it doesn't bounce back. And yet, this is only the beginning. Because what happens when you masturbate too quickly, before your body is even ready? That's where the real danger accelerates. Let's talk about that next. It's something most men never even question. You wake up, feel the urge, and before you've even had a sip of water or stepped out of bed, your hand is already moving. It's familiar, it's fast, and it feels harmless. But for the aging body, especially the heart and blood vessels, this automatic routine can quietly turn into a health threat that no one ever talks about. One patient, Harold, stands out in my memory. He was 71, retired Navy, proud of staying sexually active and in touch with his manhood, as he put it. But over the past year, he'd begun experiencing a strange pattern. He would wake up, masturbate within minutes, and then, like clockwork, feel dizzy, weak, sometimes even nauseous. At first, he thought it was just the aging process catching up with him. But after a thorough examination, one thing stood out. Every incident happened within 5 minutes of waking and always after climax. Here's what's happening inside the body. When you wake up, your blood pressure is naturally at its lowest. Blood tends to pool in the lower parts of your body during sleep, and your cardiovascular system hasn't yet rebalanced itself. Add to that the fact that cortisol, your stress hormone, is spiking during the early morning hours, and what you have is a fragile, sensitive circulatory environment. Now imagine this. You suddenly flood your nervous system with arousal signals, rapidly increase your heart rate, and shift blood flow from the brain and core to the pelvic region. That's what early rushed stimulation does. It sends your body into a high-pressure scenario before it's ready. For a man over 60 whose arteries are less elastic and whose heart needs more time to adapt, this can mean oxygen deprivation to the brain, skipped heartbeats, or even a dangerous drop in blood pressure. Harold had unknowingly been triggering a circulatory crash every morning. Once we adjusted his routine, getting him to wait at least 20 minutes after waking, drink some water, sit up, stretch a bit, and breathe fully, those symptoms disappeared. He couldn't believe how much more balanced and steady he felt even after climax. That small window of patience gave his body the preparation it needed to handle stimulation without the cardiovascular shock. So while the urge may be strong, giving your body just a few moments to wake up can be the difference between pleasure and danger. But there's another mistake that goes even deeper, one where the damage happens not from timing, but from how forcefully you're trying to feel something. And that's where things can quietly turn destructive. Let's look at that next. It's easy to understand why it happens. As sensitivity decreases with age, many men find themselves unconsciously gripping tighter, moving faster, even tensing their whole body just to feel the same level of arousal they once felt effortlessly. But what they don't realize is that these instinctive adjustments, especially first thing in the morning, can quietly and dangerously sabotage the very blood flow they're trying to encourage. I remember Thomas, a 66-year-old former construction worker who came to see me not because of erectile issues, but because of a strange numbness in his groin that had been growing worse. He also complained of a heavy, dull ache in his pelvis after climax that would linger for hours. He was healthy otherwise. Good weight, normal blood work, no history of cardiovascular disease. But after talking more openly about his routine, the picture became clearer. Every morning, without fail, Thomas would lie flat in bed and grip himself with intense pressure. His whole body would tense, legs locked, abdomen clenched, as he pushed himself toward climax. He thought the strain was necessary, just part of getting older. But it wasn't age that was causing the pain, it was his method. When you apply too much physical pressure to the penis and surrounding muscles, especially in the morning when circulation is still stabilizing, you can compress capillaries, restrict venous return, and create tension in the pelvic floor muscles that interferes with normal blood flow. For older men whose vascular systems are already more vulnerable, this leads to microvascular trauma, tiny injuries to the blood vessels that over time reduce sensation, disrupt erection quality, and contribute to chronic pelvic discomfort. And unlike sudden pain, this damage builds silently. You might not feel it happening, but it accumulates. Thomas had essentially been choking off his own circulation without realizing it. Once we shifted his approach, encouraging a slower, gentler rhythm, more relaxed posture, and less muscular engagement, he reported not only less pain, but more pleasure. His morning sessions became restorative instead of exhausting, and importantly, the numbness stopped progressing. What feels like a shortcut to sensation in the moment can become a long road to dysfunction. But there's still one more mistake that completes the picture. It's deceptively simple. Something almost everyone does without thinking, yet it quietly turns your bloodstream into a ticking time bomb. Let's uncover that next. It's such a simple oversight, so ordinary it's almost invisible. You wake up, your body feels stiff, your mouth is dry, but instead of reaching for water, you reach for relief. No food, no hydration, no thought about what your body actually needs. Just habit. But for a man over 60, this seemingly innocent moment can silently set off a dangerous chain reaction inside your circulatory system. I once treated a patient named Alan. He was 73, sharp-minded, physically active, and fiercely independent. He came in complaining about recurring dizziness after climax, especially in the mornings. He'd never smoked, barely drank, and was on no medication. His heart was strong. His labs were clean. Nothing pointed to a major issue until I asked him to walk me through his typical morning. He said, "Doc, I like to wake up and take care of business before the day begins. No distractions, just me in a quiet moment." When I asked if he drank water or ate beforehand, he chuckled. "Who has time for that? I get it done, then grab breakfast." But that routine was the very problem. After a full night of sleep, the body is dehydrated. Blood becomes thicker, moves slower, and oxygen transport is compromised. For a man Alan's age, who may already have narrower arteries and slower cardiovascular response, this creates a high-risk situation. During masturbation, especially when climax is involved, blood pressure spikes, heart rate increases, and the demand for oxygenated blood surges. But without hydration or fuel, the body can't keep up. The result? A dangerous drop in blood flow to the brain and heart, increased clotting risk, fatigue, and sometimes what feels like a mini crash right after orgasm. When Alan changed his habit, starting his morning with a glass of water and a small snack before any kind of sexual activity, the difference was night and day. His dizziness disappeared, his energy came back, and what used to feel like a drain on his system became something far more balanced and enjoyable. It wasn't the act that was hurting him. It was the timing and the lack of preparation. This is the trap so many fall into. A morning ritual that once felt normal, even comforting, can turn dangerous when your body isn't supported for what it's being asked to do. But here's the good news. These mistakes can all be reversed. And with a few key changes, you can transform this habit from something that slowly wears you down into something that supports your health. So what can you do starting tomorrow morning to protect your circulation and reclaim your strength? Let me show you. You don't need to overhaul your life to protect your circulation, just a few small, intentional changes that respect the reality of your aging body. Starting tomorrow, you can begin to reverse the silent damage by paying closer attention to the moments that used to feel automatic. Morning routines hold more power than most of us realize. The key isn't to stop seeking pleasure, but to do it in a way that honors your health, your age, and the quiet messages your body's been trying to send. First, give your body time. Don't rush straight from sleep into stimulation. Wake up, sit upright, stretch gently, drink a full glass of water, and give your cardiovascular system a chance to regulate. Those first 10 to 15 minutes matter more than you think. They allow your blood pressure to stabilize and your vessels to adapt from a resting to active state. Second, never underestimate hydration. After hours without water, your blood is thicker, your circulation slower, and your heart has to work harder to push oxygen where it's needed most. Hydration is not just about comfort. It's your first line of defense against blood clots, dizziness, and fatigue. Next, change how you engage. Replace force with awareness. Let go of the habit of tensing every muscle, of holding your breath or rushing toward climax. Breathe deeply. Relax your core and thighs. Touch gently, slowly. If you're straining just to feel something, you're likely causing more harm than you know. Trust me, there is more strength in being gentle than enforcing sensation through pressure. Lastly, rethink the idea that performance should look like it did at 25. At this stage in life, pleasure should serve your health, not challenge it. That means prioritizing circulation, stability, and recovery just as much as sensation. The reward isn't just in the climax, it's in how you feel after it. Energized, clear-headed, and grounded. I've seen men in their 60s and 70s regain vitality, not by avoiding sexual activity, but by approaching it with respect and strategy. And it doesn't take months, it starts the very next morning. But even with these adjustments, many older men still carry one unspoken question deep down, one they're often too embarrassed to ask aloud, and how much damage have I already done? And can I undo it? In the final thoughts ahead, let's answer that, honestly and with hope. If you've made it this far, that tells me something important about you. You care, not just about performance, but about staying healthy, sharp, and in control of your body. You're not here chasing cheap advice, you're here because you've noticed that things feel different after 60. Slower, less predictable, maybe even more fragile than you'd like to admit. And you're wise enough to ask, what does that mean for me now? Let's go back to where we started. 4 simple habits, things most men do without thinking, can quietly chip away at your circulation and heart health over time. Holding your breath during climax may feel automatic, but it disrupts your blood pressure and starves your brain of oxygen. Stimulating too quickly after waking overwhelms your heart before it's ready. Gripping too tightly or tensing your muscles hijacks healthy blood flow and can lead to long-term dysfunction. And skipping hydration or stimulation on an empty stomach turns what should be a moment of relief into a vascular risk. None of these mistakes make you reckless. They make you human. You were never taught this stuff because, truthfully, very few doctors talk about it. Even fewer understand what it really feels like. To be in a body that still wants pleasure but doesn't always respond the way it used to. I've sat with so many men who felt confused, ashamed, even betrayed by the changes happening in their own skin. And I've watched their faces soften with relief when they realize this isn't the end, it's just a different chapter. One with new rules, yes, but also new rewards. The good news is that damage doesn't have to be permanent. The circulatory system, even after years of subtle wear, has an incredible ability to recover if you give it the right conditions. Hydration, breathing, patience, and gentleness may not sound revolutionary, but to an aging body, they are. When applied consistently, these small changes can lead to more stable energy, stronger erections, clearer thinking, and even lower blood pressure over time, and perhaps more importantly, they can restore a sense of confidence. The quiet knowing that you're treating your body like an ally, not an opponent. You don't have to give up your desires, you just have to adjust how you approach them. That's not weakness, that's wisdom. That's the difference between aging and thriving. So here's my challenge to you. Tomorrow morning, don't move on autopilot. Give your body the respect it's earned. Breathe, drink water, go slowly. And notice how different it feels, not just in the moment, but afterward. The proof isn't in what you do, it's in how you feel when it's done. But before we close this chapter, there's one more question I want to leave you with, one that's been quietly lingering behind all the physical advice. What does healthy sexuality look like for a man who still feels young on the inside, but carries decades of life in his bones? The answer may surprise you, and it's where your next breakthrough begins.